are gonna get crazy!
Most everyone's mad here.
Greetings and welcome, gentle viewer and listener. Welcome to all to AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. How are you all doing, everyone? I hope you've all been doing well. I hope you've all been taking care of yourselves, because now we are at the point where we will have to look back at what the fridge occurred last week, and we're going to go and let out all of our emotions here at AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. And by the way, just a little bit of a heads up that this is going to be one of those episodes where it may be a little bit more shorter than usual, because instead of the usual 5 stories, I only got 4. Now, I know that there have been some reports that did come out throughout the week that might be worth mentioning. I know that there have been some news, including the official sequel of The Grinch is going to be published soon. Well, it was at least announced. There was also the backlash that Ravio has gotten, forcing Angry Bird fans to try to do microtransactions, even getting rid of some of their more popular games that you just pay one time and you can play the entire thing, like Ravio Classics Angry Birds. And there was even today, this morning, was the Pokemon Presents, which is the Pokemon version of Nintendo Direct, and made a whole bunch of major announcements, including Pokemon Trading Card Classic. There was also the announcement of Pokemon Sleep, that it is finally going to get a release pretty soon, or hopefully sometime this year. And even at the end, revealing the DLC of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Now, I know there has been a whole bunch of different news that can be worth talking about here, but I'm just going to be focusing on 4 of these stories in particular, because trust me when I say that there is a lot to go and unpack with these ones. There is a lot to go and discuss, and trust me, there is a lot of craziness that will be in store in this episode. So I hope you are all ready for that. But before I go and continue, there is one thing that I just want to go and talk about immediately, because honestly, this was actually a breaking news. This was a last minute thing that actually occurred, or that was just announced like a few minutes before starting this episode. The Walt Disney Company has sadly announced the passing of Bernie Mattinson. And for those of you who don't know who Bernie Mattinson is, he is said to be the longest serving employee of the Walt Disney Company, specifically at Walt Disney Animation Studios, where if he had pushed through just a little bit longer, like if he managed to survive just a few more months, then this year would have been the 70th anniversary of working at Disney. And in terms of his contributions that he did for the company, or specifically at Walt Disney Animation Studios, he actually worked in varying different capacities throughout Disney's animated features. When he was 18, he joined the studio and immediately got to work on Lady and the Tramp. And then following afterwards, he would work on many, many other feature films throughout Disney's history, like Sleeping Beauty, 101 Dalmatians, Winnie the Pooh, and even some of the more recent stuff, like the 2011 Winnie the Pooh, or even Moana, or Big Hero 6, or I don't know about Moana, but definitely Big Hero 6, and even recently working as a mentor and a story consultant for Strange World. Like, this was a man whom nonstop throughout his life would work at the Walt Disney Company. You know, he's honestly one of the most admired figures in animation that not many people have heard of. Sure, we all are familiar with the names such as Glenn Keane, or Eric Goldberg, John Musker, and Ron Clements, or even Floyd Norman, but Bernie Mattinson is one of those names that deserves to be on par with those legends because of the heavy amount of contribution that he has done throughout the years at Disney Animation. So I just want to go and pay my respects to Bernie Mattinson, and just want to say thank you for all the years of the work that you have done throughout countless of Disney animated features, and you will surely be missed. All right, so with that said and done, now that I've said my little piece on that, it is now time that I would like to go into the chat wall, and I want to ask you all, are you ready for today's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast? Let me hear it, folks. Are you ready? All right, yes, already I see the excitement is still there. That's great to see, that heavy amount of energy. That is exactly what we need for this. Oh, thank you, Ralph, by the way, for that little subscription there. Adds on to the excitement of all this. So with all that said and done, it is now time that we shall go and get things started. And with our first story, well, kind of a well-placed transition, I must say, because with the passing of Bernie Mattinson, there was also another thing that would no longer be with us. And this is actually something that maybe not many of you are personally attached to, or maybe not many of you are actually familiar. But this, I gotta say, is a little bit sad for me, especially when this is something that I personally grew up with over the years, especially back during the 1990s and the 2000s. I can safely say that this actually played a significant part of my childhood, and it's pretty sad to see it go. And our first story that we're going to talk about is going to be in regards to the rebranding of Teletoon. Yes, I was about to say Cartoon Network, but it's actually Teletoon. Yes, Chorus Entertainment has officially revealed that they are going to go on a complete rebrand of the Canadian channel Teletoon, in which they have announced that it will now be called Cartoon Network. And I'm already choking up here. Nah, but for real though, basically what they are doing is that now they're kind of assimilating Teletoon, where now it will become Cartoon Network. And yes, this is the same Cartoon Network that we are thinking. And on top of that, they have revealed that with this rebranding, they are also going to go and include Boomerang onto Canadian stations, where now people can go and watch their retro cartoon content onto Boomerang. But this is not to say, though, that Teletoon is going to be fully gone. Maybe it is gone on television, but there is a brand new streaming service in which they call Teletoon Plus, that they are going to keep that Teletoon brand in there. In fact, allow me to go into a little bit more details, coming directly from the Chorus Entertainment website, in which it will go more into details of what I said. And it is stated here, I'll just read this part. And yeah, sorry, by the way, if the placement seems a little bit awkward here. I'll try to push it down so that you could see it. I don't know. It's the website. It's kind of like oddly placed. And thank you, Daniel, by the way, for that subscription. Anyways, okay, now that we can see it clearer, it says here, beginning March 27th, Teletoon is set to become Cartoon Network, an iconic kids brand known worldwide for delivering the biggest and best in animation. Chorus also introduces a new kids television channel in Canada by relaunching the current Cartoon Network channel as Boomerang. Debuting in the Canadian market for the first time, but bringing it scores of fans worldwide, the Boomerang brand stands for the best in retro content, classic animation series, and foundational kids programming. Modernizing and expanding Chorus's catalog of genre-defining entertainment across his portfolio, the rebrand to Cartoon Network and the launch of Boomerang alongside Teletoons Plus signals the next chapter in Canadian kids content. Families and kids can engage in a variety of programming across linear and streaming platforms live on demand. Now, we also do have a comment here coming from the SVP of Programming and Multi-Platform in Chorus Entertainment, Jennifer Abrams, in which she states, staying true to our loyal fans across generations have been on our top priority as we reimagine the future of our kids' network. By partnering with Warner Brothers Discovery Inc. and strengthening our portfolio of brands across linear platforms, Stack TV, and Teletoon Plus, we will usher Cartoon Network into a new stage of hilarious comedy and edge-of-your-seat action while keeping the Teletoon legacy alive in the digital space. So that's pretty much the big thing that they have announced. And to go and clarify some things, technically, yes, in Canada, we actually did have a Cartoon Network station. But I guess now with this whole rebranding thing, Teletoon is now going to be Cartoon Network, and what was Cartoon Network is now going to be Boomerang. Now, to give you context for you guys to like fully understand, back when I was a kid, back in the 1990s and in the 2000s, we did not have Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon or any of those American stations. Like, what Cartoon Network was for Americans, Teletoon was for us. And where Americans had Nickelodeon, we had YTV. And if we really wanted to have those American stations, then we had to go through this complex system in which we had to literally hack a satellite dish. Like, I remember my family once, we had a satellite dish, like we got DirecTV or something, and we had to do something in order to hack it so that we would have access to the American stations. That's how I was able to actually get into Cartoon Network and actually watch the Cartoon Fridays, or I would be more familiar with many of the content that they would go and release, like Dexter's Lab or Codename Kids Next Door or Ed, Edd and Eddy or Johnny Bravo and all that kind of stuff. But still, even if we wouldn't have that, we still would have Teletoon, which is the closest thing that we could get to Cartoon Network, in which they would actually go and show a lot of those Cartoon Network shows. Like, when I was a kid, before even having like that satellite dish hack, we would go and, like, I remember I would watch stuff like Cow and Chicken or Ed, Edd and Eddy or Dexter's Lab or Powerpuff Girls. Like, I would watch it through that station over there, on top of like the Canadian programs that they would also offer at the same time. Like, it wasn't just the Cartoon Network stuff that I would go and watch on Teletoon. I remember I watched many of the other shows that they would go and deliver. I remember I used to watch, like, one of my favorites was What's with Andy. That was like an awesome Teletoon show that they would that they would show. I remember I used to watch also the Mega Babies. That was one of them that they would present. And by the way, you might be surprised that there are some Teletoon shows or some Canadian animated series from Teletoon that they would go on to become internationally well known. Like, they would become very famous. Teletoon, believe it or not, was actually the home of 16 and Total Drama Island, like that entire franchise. So there have been a lot of Canadian content, and there's another one that I remember I used to watch a lot, Angela Anaconda. And I know Angela Anaconda is a weird show, trust me, I understand that completely, but there was a period when I remember I used to, like, I was guilty of watching a lot of that Angela Anaconda show, and I get it. I understand that it looks weird, it looks awkward and stuff like that, but I don't know, I guess, like, I got used to it, and I was fascinated by the weird nature of its animation style and using all those like live pictures in order to go and present this show. And yes, I even do recall the animated short that they did for the Digimon movie. Like, before the Digimon movie would show, they would present this Oh, by the way, thank you, Ryan, for the subscription there. But I remember, like, they had the Digimon show, and then later on, they actually took that entire episode, like, they actually took that entire short, and they did turn it into an Angela Anaconda episode where all they did was actually like change up the names of like what is supposed to be Digimon. And it's funny because, like, you actually still see a lot of the designs that were from Digimon. Like, you see some of the characters that were dressed up like as either Tai or TJ or like some of the or some of the other ones. Like, you still see some of those elements of Digimon in that short. But anyways, I'm sorry, I'm just getting sidetracked. But the point that I am making here is that for Canadians, especially those from the 1990s and the 2000s, Teletoon was almost an essential part of our childhood. Like, a lot of the cartoons that we loved watching all came from Teletoon. And oh, I just realized, like, now it's starting to come in. Like, I'm remembering more and more of these Cartoon Network shows. But another one that I remember growing up with is kids what was it, Kids from the Room 402, in which it chronicles like just the life of all these like crazy not 10th graders, but like these crazy 4th graders, like all with their unique personalities that stand out. And one that I remember, like, who is often considered to be the most annoying is Polly, which I forgot in which I forgot her name, but I remember she was actually she's actually voiced by the same woman who does Tails nowadays. You probably do know the name. Oh, but yeah, TK, sorry. Sorry, that's who I meant. TK, not TJ. Yeah, you got this character named Polly, and like she always has this obsession over two things: her origins in Lithuania or spoons. Like she is legitimately known as the spoon lady. Yeah, Colleen O'Shaughnessy. Yeah, that's exactly who I'm talking about. She's the voice. She always has this nagging, annoying, high-pitched voice talking about spoons. If you see Kids from the Room 402, you know exactly who I'm talking about, and you know how much of a prick that woman is. But anyways, yeah. And as you could probably tell, like, I remember watching a lot of these shows, and yeah, like when I was a kid, I used to be like a lot more obsessed with TV than I am now, and it really is thanks to Teletoon. And I remember there was also another factor with Teletoon in which it was very much like the Cartoon Network of Canada, where they even have their own like spin-off channels as well. Like I remember there was even like some Adult Swim programs that would come to Teletoon, in which they would have their own section called Teletoon at Night. That's when they would show the more mature programming. I remember like that's when I used to watch a lot of the stuff. Like I remember watching a lot of Aqua Teen Hunger Force through Teletoon at night, which I mean, like, I remember, and I watched it admittedly at a younger age than I probably should, like around like 12 years old or like 11 or stuff like that. It was a very stupid show, but I remember still enjoying it. And then I remember they also did Teletoon Retro, which technically that is the Canadian Boomerang. Teletoon Retro is where they would go and show a lot of the old animated programs. That's when they would show a lot of old shows, like they would show a lot of the Hanna-Barbera stuff, or they would even show a lot of the old superhero shows, like the 1960s show of like Spider-Man, of the Incredible Hulk, or even Rocket Robin Hood. I remember there were a lot of times when Teletoon Retro would show Rocket Robin Hood, which is honestly one of the cheesiest animated series that I've ever seen. It's hard to go and top the cheesiness of Rocket Robin Hood. But yeah, overall though, just seeing Teletoon suddenly being assimilated into Cartoon Network. And I mean, I get it. Like, Cartoon Network has really become this massively global brand and like very recognizable. Like, we all know it as the home of many animated classics such as the Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Lab, and even some modern hits like Adventure Time, regular shows, Steven Universe, and many, many more. But still though, it's going to be sad to see it go. And that's why there's like a part of me that is sad to hear about this news. And like, as I said before, it feels like there is a part of my childhood that is gone. The one thing that played a significant factor into my love for animation nowadays is sadly gonna be gone. It's sadly no longer with us, and honestly, it's really unfortunate. I feel like it's just sad to see it go. So like, and to give you Americans like a good perspective of like how I'm feeling right now, imagine if you do take something like Cartoon Network, but then they would go and transform it into a brand that is much bigger, that they would turn it into Warner Brothers Animation or something. I mean, technically it is still there, but the form that you remember growing up with is going to be completely gone. And that's how I'm feeling right now. No, I just feel like again, it's just a significant part of my childhood that's no longer going to be with us. I mean, I'm definitely going to miss Teletoon for sure, and I'm going to miss all those years of like when I used to watch stuff like Ed, Ed and Eddie or What's with Andy through Teletoon. It's gonna be sad to see it go, and I mean, it'll still be there, but it's just not gonna be the same. Watching Cartoon Network is not gonna be like how it is when watching Teletoon. That I can pretty much go and say. So with that said, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I want to know from you guys. I don't know if many of you are really familiar with Teletoon as much as I am, but I just wanted to go and express a little personal piece of like my childhood, just just to give you an idea of something that I grew up with. If you have any comments, or especially if you are familiar with Teletoon, or if you're a Canadian that did grow up with Teletoon, let me know what you think about all this. I'm not expecting a whole lot of thoughts on this, but we will see. Here's from Ryan. The irony is, despite being a Canadian production, Ed, Ed and Eddie didn't air on Teletoon nearly as long as the other Cartoon Network shows. Antonucci and the crew often bring that up. Yeah, that is honestly one of the weirdest things about Ed, Ed and Eddie, because it is true that Ed, Ed and Eddie is a Canadian show. It is actually it was actually developed in Vancouver for so many years. I think for like almost a decade. They were working entirely on Ed, Ed and Eddie, and yet they were having a harder time to keep it up in Canada, but apparently in the US with Cartoon Network, it's one of the biggest shows in Cartoon Network history. Like, apparently that is completely fine. I don't know about you, but that is honestly pretty strange. So, and keep in mind with Ed, and especially with Ed, Ed and Eddie, like, I love the show. I would even say it's my favorite Cartoon Network show. So honestly, yeah, like when you do think about it with its Canadian roots and stuff like that, it's like, yeah, how is it that Ed, Ed and Eddie is incapable? Like, how is it that Ed, Ed and Eddie is more of a Cartoon Network show than a Teletoon show? Seems a little bit strange there. Let's see. This definitely is unfortunate. Personally, I never really grew up with Teletoon since I live in America and had Cartoon Network. Plus, I was always a Nickelodeon kid, but I won't deny that it had a major impact on Canadian television. Although I did really enjoy some Teletoon programming like Total Drama Island, so it is definitely unfortunate that we have to say goodbye to Teletoon. Oh, especially, yeah. Let's see. Even though I am not Canadian, but I absolutely love Total Drama when it first came out on Cartoon Network in America. To all my Canadian friends, I'm sorry to hear the news about your favorite cartoon channel being gone. I know the feeling every time I think about the Hub and Toon Disney. Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm sure there are some American examples there, like especially with the Hub that was once a prominent home to My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. So I'm sure you bronies would understand that feeling of what I'm going through. Like, when you see the Hub suddenly being gone after the years of providing you with My Little Pony, that's how I'm feeling right now, looking back at Teletoon playing a significant part of my childhood and played a significant influence in my love in animation, suddenly being gone and now just being assimilated into something American. So you get how I feel now. Let's see. I'm a little bit heartbroken because I remember growing up watching Teletoon. It has its ups and downs, but it was great after finding out Teletoon is rebranding to Cartoon Network. I was sad. Rest in peace, Teletoon. Well, at least we still have YTV. That is true. YTV is still alive and well. Like it is still going, believe it or not, after all these years. Let's see, what else do we have here? What if we have do we have any more Canadian do we have any more Canadian people in the chat wall talking about Teletoon? I don't know. But anyways, with how many shows Teletoon and Cartoon Network have shared over the years, I suppose this may have been inevitable. Obviously, as an American, I wasn't able to grow up with a channel out aside from the shows that were imported in the States in my youth, like Ned's Newt, D Gabba Defenders, Marvin, the Tap Dancing Horse, etc. Oh my god, Ned's Newt was another major one. Oh my god. But this is still the end of an era for Canadian television. Now the big question is, will YTV become Nickelodeon Canada, and will Family become Disney Channel Canada? I think those ones are going to be like completely separate topics there that I don't know, but oh my god, you do bring up another one I remember I used to watch so much as a kid. Ned's Newt. Yo, that was a crazy show. That was basically Newton, like the Newt in Ned's Newt. He is the Canadian version of the genie from Aladdin. Like, he has that same type of Robin Williams like energy, and he would like always transform into like these different characters. Not to mention, like, it's a big blue comedic guy, so like of course there are like those massive parallels. So oh my god, like I just had a big flash of like all the different episodes of seeing Ned's Newt. But yeah, like that was another one that I grew up with. Let's see what else we have here. Any other comments? Just want to see. Well, I was born in the United States, but I do understand your pain of Canada getting rid of a channel you grew up with, since it is the only channel in Canada where you could get Cartoon Network shows. Quick OTT question. Since you watched Cocaine Bear yesterday, what did you think of the Strays trailer? Strays, I think, like, honestly, we will see. It looks, it looks cute. It looks fun, but it looks like the same kind of movie that Cocaine Bear is. It's more of the novelty of seeing an R-rated dog comedy. There is one question that I do have in mind, though, that, okay, now that they are making Strays, I wonder if that will interfere with the production of Gendy Tartakovsky's Fix. That, I guess we will have to wait and see. I think I'll just read one more quick comment, and then we're going to move on to the next story. Oh, Ryan coming in with the immortal words of Ed. Canadians are weird. They sure are. Look at me. Let's see. I've definitely seen some of the shows from Teletoon as a kid, like Maggie, for example, as well as Total Drama. Oh, do you mean Maggie and the Ferocious Beast? I remember that too, actually. And I would say I watch Scatoony via YouTube occasionally. Sad to see it go. So yeah, honestly, it's unfortunate to see, and I mean, who knows? Maybe in the future, like I am on, like with this news, I am considering the idea of maybe doing like a history video. I could do the history of Teletoon. It would be an interesting thing to go and see, and like, of course, to go and educate people about like a big part of my childhood. But yeah, it's gonna be sad to see Teletoon go. It's gonna, like at the end of March, it's gonna be a pretty sad time for 90s kids, and maybe for some 2000s kids. But anyways, we're gonna go on to a quick break, and when we do return, we're gonna dive into some major controversy, and we are going to be learning about the immortal lesson of how karma can be quite a bitch, but sometimes it can be a bitch when necessary. And we are back. Now, with the next story that I have over here, this is actually something that was fairly recent. In fact, this was something that exploded during the weekend, where, as I said before, this is a story about karma, and it was something that it was a long time coming. Now, keep in mind, I'll say this again later, but this is not the first time that I've talked about this individual, but honestly, it's about time that consequences have finally come into effect of his actions. And who I'm talking about is in regards to Scott Adams. Now, for those of you who don't know, Scott Adams is the creator of the Dilbert comic series. But in recent years, Scott Adams has become more and more controversial, where instead of being known as a comic creator, the dude is more known to be a bit of a far-right conspiracy theorist, or I would even say alt-right conspiracy theorist. This man would go and come in, and he would write down on social media some of the wildest takes that you would ever hear in politics, some that are comically ridiculous. Like, I would say that Scott Adams is like almost in the levels of Alex Jones, where the things that he would say are just absolutely ridiculous, where it's hard for some people to go and take this guy seriously with the way that he would view Democrats and the way that he would express his nationalist views. However, over the years, over the crazy insane things that he would say, it seems that very recently, apparently he has crossed a major line, especially when talking about Black people. Because what happened was that he has this YouTube show called Real Coffee with Scott Adams. In fact, actually, you know what? I have my source here on ABC News, and I'll let this describe it for me. So let me just go into the section. Yeah, so I'm just gonna read like a significant part, and it states here: the backlash began following an episode this past week on the YouTube show Real Coffee with Scott Adams. Among other topics, Adams referenced a Rasmussen report survey that has asked whether people agree with the statement, "It's okay to be white." Most agreed, but Adams noted that 26% of Black respondents disagreed and others weren't sure. The Anti-Defamation League says that the phrase was popularized in 2017 as a trolling campaign by members of the discussion forum 4chan, but then began being used by some white supremacists. Adams, who is white, repeatedly referred to people who are Black as members of a hate group or a racist hate group, and says that he would no longer help Black Americans. Based on the current way things are going, the best advice I would give to white people is to get the hell away from Black people, Adams says on his Wednesday show. Another episode on his online show Saturday, Adams said that he was making a point that everyone should be treated as an individual without discrimination, but you should also avoid any groups that doesn't respect you, even if there are people within the group who are fine, in which is what he said. So as you could tell, Adams was pretty much promoting racism. Like, there's no way around it. It's flat out racism. It's not just racism, but it's also promoting fear-mongering, segregation, and basically just, basically promoting the Great Replacement theory, which I will get into a little bit later in case you don't know what the Great Replacement theory is. So yeah, he pretty much went out and said these blatantly racist things, and media publishers decided that enough is enough, that they cannot stand any more of Scott Adams babbling about his crazy, insane rants. And this one apparently went a little bit too far with the levels of racism that he went and promote, which is why the grand majority of newspapers and publishers nowadays have not only denounced what Scott Adams said, but they stated that they would no longer go and publish any Dilbert comics, that they are going to get rid of Dilbert from their newspapers, from their publishing platforms, just so that, like, just as a way to protest against Scott Adams. They are no longer going to go and show any Dilbert. To which then, with what Scott Adams, how he remarked, well, let's just say he hasn't been handling it well, you know? Like, he even said that he felt like his career is destroyed, and he's going on the usual rants that he's being canceled by the media. The media are the bad guys for canceling him and all that kind of crazy stuff. So basically, after the years of ramblings that he would do, it seems that this one, he ended up crossing the line, and that's when the media decided it's over for Scott Adams. They are no longer going to be associated with him. And as I've repeatedly said before, with Scott Adams, this is not the first instance that he would say something heavily bigoted in his platform. he is actually notorious for spreading this alt-right conspiracy theory. And like with the like at the levels of what he would go and express, it really is like we're talking about tinfoil hat levels. It's like insane conspiracy theories that can be comparable to like delusional ideologies, like thinking that the world is flat or that the moon landing was fake or anything like that. He doesn't care like if there's any legitimate proof to it. Like he just has his paranoia like mentality and just really overblows like whatever he would go and state. And yes, regardless of what people would go and argue for what Scott Adams says, there is no denying that it really is racism, that he's trying to use the survey as a way to go and promote segregation, as a way to justify racism, and just to flat out attack all Black people by saying that they are part of a hate group, because apparently there seems to be this significant portion that says that no, they do not agree that being white is okay, which honestly feels like something that is taken completely out of context. I don't like, honestly, when it comes, I believe that when it comes to the grand majority of those that say that being white is okay, they didn't, you know, they're not saying that, no, it's not okay to be white. It's not, I don't think they have a prejudice because they know the meaning of it. They know the history of it. And they know that being white is okay is often used as a white nationalist dog whistle. So this really is an aspect in which Scott Adams is just taking this, you know, he's just taking this little bit of information and really twisting it to promote what is generally fear-mongering and to go and promote the Great Replacement Theory. And for those of you who don't know what the Great Replacement Theory is, it's basically a theory that is heavily implemented in white supremacist groups. And I really do mean the most extreme of the extreme. Like when you see like the KKK, the Nazis, or the Proud Boys, whenever they would go and like promote the, like you would see those people who would frequently promote great replacement theory ideologies, thinking that there is going to be this one day where people of color are going to go and replace white people as the majority, and now white people are going to become the oppressed. It's to go and promote the idea that apparently white people are going to be the victims and that they need to fight back against those that they got to go and attack those that are thinking about replacing them. That's why they would go and justify bigotry, they would justify racism. And that's why anybody with that kind of mentality, they end up being viewed as a domestic terrorist. They would become a violent criminal. And that's what, and that is essentially what that's pretty much what Scott Adams is trying to promote here. He's trying to promote criminal activity. He's trying to promote violence. He's trying to promote hate-filled ideologies. In a way, he's projecting his own hate speech by calling others a hate group with this. And I know that it is kind of crazy that only now Scott Adams is being called out for this, that the media is doing something to hurt his business by not publishing any Dilbert books, because it is true that with Scott Adams, he has a long history of bigotry. This is not the first time that he would go and promote racism, but he also has a history of promoting misogyny, stating that, oh, women should not be paid as much as men and stuff like that. Like, he has a history of homophobia, of transphobia. Like, this is a bigot all around. And yet now, out of all things, people decided, okay, enough is enough. And the crazy thing with Scott Adams is that we know for a fact that this is not the first time we've seen someone like him do this. This is, you know, and it's not the first time that we've seen consequences like this happen after the person would go and promote bigotry. Because the big thing with Scott Adams is that he has something that I would like to go and call the Gina Carano syndrome, named after former actress and potential asylum patient Gina Carano. And what that is that this is what happens when you have someone who cannot shut up spreading right-wing conspiracy theories, that they would keep on doing it again and again and again, nonstop, no matter what. Like there's nothing that could pretty much go and stop them. Like even if you would go and prove that many of those conspiracy theories are false, even if you would go and tell, like even if you got like higher ups that would tell them to go and stop, they're just going to keep on going again and again and again, spreading false misinformation, spreading dangerous conspiracy theories, and spreading hate speech. And inevitably, the more they would keep at it, the more that eventually they will say the one thing that it will cross the line for everyone, even for the people that they work with, where they have to go and say they have no choice but to let them go, to completely disassociate from that individual. And it's what we have seen with Scott Adams. It's what we have seen before with Gina Carano. And we have seen this before with some other people as well. Like another example I could think of is Roseanne Barr, where after she made that racist rant on Twitter, like she lost everything. She even lost what was once the highest rated show on television. And because she went on a racist tirade, she pretty much lost it. Like everything was just dropped. And that really is the problem. And it's insane to see that even afterwards, he would still keep on going, that Scott Adams would still continue on his alt-right conspiracy tirade, that he would still go and tell people, he would still go and try to address himself as the victim. Oh, that he's not the one who is wrong. It's the media that is wrong. And you even got more idiots like Elon Musk joining in, trying to say that, no, Scott Adams is not racist. It's actually the media who is racist against white people. And so far, that seems to be the most common defense for Scott Adams, is that Scott Adams is not racist. It's the media who are racist against whites. And let me tell you, that is a bull crap argument. Everyone knows that it is not true. We all know that there is no such thing as systemic racism against white people. Even as a white person myself, I personally do know this, who has never faced any form of racism that has hindered my life during my entire 30 years of existence. We all know that for sure. But the thing that is just so bullcrap is that this is a very common tactic of defending bigotry. And I've seen this happen all the time. Whenever people would go and call someone out for spreading hate speech or for being a bigot, you would get those defenders that would try to deflect that by accusing the accusers of being bigots themselves of the other thing. Like a great example, and this is probably one that maybe you have seen online, like when you see people who are calling someone out for being a misogynist, you'll have at least one person come in, try to attack them, saying that, yeah, well, you're a misandrist. What about misandry? What about sexism towards men? And they'll try to go and deflect the subject to try to flip it in a way to like justify the bigotry that is currently going on, even though it has literally nothing to do about it. Like when the subject of sexism against women would be brought up, misandry or sexism against men has nothing to do with it. And the same case goes with this subject right over here. Whatever idea you may think of what is racism against white people, this has nothing to do with it. There's none happening whatsoever. Like that has nothing to do with the subject that we are talking about right now. What this is about Scott Adams being racist towards black people. And that is the issue that needs to be brought up. And like I said before, even to this day, what is the most insane is that just today, Scott Adams decided to wake up and he still decides to say these insane things. And one of the most insane things that he said was as a way to go and defend himself is to say that, oh, well, I don't get discrimination from black people. In fact, I actually view myself as a black person for several years. No joke. That is a legitimate thing that he wrote down on Twitter, that he woke up and decided to say, hey, I'm going to tell people that I view myself as a black guy for several years. Apparently, there's something that ignited in his brain to say, yeah, That's apparently a good idea. There we go. Yeah, and it's so ridiculous. When I saw that, like, my jaw dropped. In fact, I actually did something to show, to actually like express my thoughts on the situation. And as a response, I actually created this little comic and I put it up on social media. So I'm just gonna, I'll just go and quickly read this to you. Management has asked me to add some diversity to the engineering team. Meet Scott. I identified as black for several years. You're ruining everything, Scott. It's ironic because, like, the thing that he said really did remind me so much of, like, the comic that he tried to pull last year with Dave. Like, he tried to do this transphobic commentary about this black guy who identifies himself as white. Never did I legitimately expect that Dave, the character that he created out of his transphobia, is apparently a self-insert. That he himself is like, he's pretty much Dave, but apparently it's just reverse. I didn't know Dave Dave was inspired by Scott Adams himself with the way that he thinks that he was black for some reason. Like, oh my God, that is just that's just insane, man. It really is crazy, but that's the big thing. Like, overall, honestly, with what Scott Adams got, like, of course he deserves it. Of course what he says is undeniably racist, and he deserves to be called out, and he deserves to have his career be ruined by it, and pretty much take whatever reputation and whatever dignity that he has and just throw it all out the window. He's a worthless individual, and just like any other racist person in this world, he's a violent criminal. In fact, by the way, just a side note, this is exactly why there's a lot of Republicans right now that are trying to censor critical race theory in schools. Because throughout history, there is no such thing as a good guy who has racist ideologies. Anybody who has racist ideologies are viewed throughout history as violent criminals, just like how all racist people are violent criminals to this day, who is equal to the levels of the mass shooter from the Michigan State University. So from there, because of the fact that Scott Adams was acting like a violent criminal and he was pretty much promoting these violent criminal ideologies, then he might as well be treated like a violent criminal. To just flat out get rid of him, dispose of him, and dispose of his hate-filled ideologies. Because now, he is worthless. He's just a violent criminal whom the world would be much better without his mindset right there. So honestly, yeah, overall, he absolutely deserves it. And it's just wild to see how this man's brain is just deteriorating before our very eyes, to the point where now, like, he's lost it. Like, now he only has his hate-filled ideologies, and he doesn't even have his Dilbert empire anymore. He's just known as a psychopath. That's all there is, just like anybody who condones hate speech. So, boy, okay, well, with that said and done, I would like to go into the chat wall, and it's now time that I want to ask you, how do you feel about the entire Scott Adams controversy? You know, let me know what you think, because I know this is a true wild one there. Let's see. Oh, wow. Breaking news. Dilbert creator ousted for being racist. Marmaduke prepares to rise to the top. Heathcliff refused to comment. Oh my God. Yeah, I don't know. I think you need to give time for Marmaduke to rise up to the top, because Marmaduke had a pretty nasty fall after last year's movie. Like, maybe it's not a fall that's as bad as Scott Adams, but still, though, Marmaduke is not an admirable name nowadays. Yeah, give that some time. Let's see. This is definitely a smart move. With how Scott Adams is basically spreading hate speech on the internet and has racist ideologies, he absolutely deserves to have his reputation destroyed, and he deserves to have some of his reputation destroyed. So now that Scott Adams is taken down, can we please do something about J.K. Rowling? Oh, you know, it's funny about J.K. Rowling because I'm just going to state this right now and I'm going to do a prediction. I think J.K. Rowling is going to be the next to have Gina Carano syndrome. Now, I'm not saying that she's going to be immediately next right after Scott Adams, but I can tell you right now, with her transphobic views and the way that she has rebranded herself as like a transphobic icon, there's inevitably going to be a point where she's going to keep on saying stupid thing after stupid thing until there's going to be one thing that she will say that's going to be absolutely deranged and dangerous, that companies working for her, like publishers and especially Warner Brothers, will have no choice but to disassociate from her. Rather it be completely throwing out the Harry Potter franchise or taking the Harry Potter franchise away from J.K. Rowling, there's going to be one thing that she will say based on her anti-trans stance that her career will be absolutely ruined, and that she will no longer find any more revenue from the Harry Potter franchise. Mark my words, it will happen one day. She definitely is a strong candidate for Gina Carano syndrome. Let's see what else we got. Statement to all those labeled racist. If you can't accept the reality of the world around you, then your world doesn't need your existence. I'm not saying this in a threatening way whatsoever, but can't stand people who can't recognize that there are other people than themselves that exist. Everyone ain't the same. That's the power of diversity. Racism and nationalism are the worst things in humanity that has been created. We strongly need to revamp civic education throughout the world. Nice words there. Nice words. Let's see. Quote from Ladybug from Bullet Train. Karma is a bitch. In about time that his reputation is about to go downhill, considering that I've never read any Dilbert comic strips or even the TV series as well during my life. He's kind of the guy that makes no apology to anyone just to be a hateful bigot while making conspiracy theories in terms of trolling people so that he must be let go. Also, no, Scott, you're not canceled because you're black. It's because you are racist. Exactly, man. It's ridiculous. And you know, the funny thing is that technically on YouTube, he still has his channel. I could be wrong, but I think you could still see that video where he is promoting racism. You know, and it kind of makes me wonder at this point, with how his reputation is going severely downhill, how long is his YouTube channel going to stay up until inevitably YouTube would have to pull the plug? I'm sure there's going to be a lot of pressure to take down his platform on YouTube, especially because if he's going to have, like, there's no way that this dude is going to maintain a living or maintain a revenue through his bigoted ideologies. Let's see what else we got. All right, I'll go over. No, I've already read that one. He is also saying that people are calling him out are anti-white. What Scott Adams is doing is playing the victim card, strawmanning and trivializing the issue minorities are facing. And while it's true that European groups like Spanish and Hispanics, Italians, Irish, and even Ukrainians face oppression, it's still not an excuse to justify bigotry against blacks. Even when he tries to claim to be identified as black, which is considered victim card playing, and one thing, F around and find out. Exactly. He spent so many years effing around and now he has found out. And also, just a quick statement that, yeah, there's a lot of white people who are facing oppression, especially Ukrainians. But those people are not facing oppression because of their race. It's not because they're white that they're facing oppression. It's another subject altogether. So just want to go. So again, there is no such thing as systemic racism against whites. And if you are white, you'll most likely never face any form of racism just because of the color of your skin. You ain't, trust me, you won't face the same problems as black people, as Hispanic people, as Asian people, or anything like that. And as a white person myself, I should know. Let's see. It pisses me off that the man has popularity and attention more than I could ever get. I don't associate with him with the show that much if you think about it. Thankfully, I'm glad his comics are getting banned and hopefully it stays that way. Well, I mean, with the reputation that he has, it's not the kind that anyone would really want, because in the long run, the dude is going to be viewed as a hated figure. Like, for anyone who goes and just spreads hate, they're going to get hate in return. It's simple as that. and this goes for any of the other nationalists, any other people who are for like any other people who promote hate speech, and any other like people who are against woke culture. If all they do is just hate, they're just gonna get hate back, and in the long run, that's their legacy. They're just a hater. All right, I'm gonna read one more comment before we go and move on to the next story. Let's see. Right over here. You either die as Schultz or you live long enough to become an Adams. Oh, that's a nice quote there. I like that. I don't understand why it's so difficult to not be a deranged xenophobic jackass. I'm so glad I never got into Dilbert. If you want to read an actual good newspaper comic about the infuriating absurdity of corporate life, read Retail by Norm Beauty. It's way funnier and more heartfelt, has better art, and it's not written by an a-hole. All right, that's nice promotion there. Like, at least we do know that Dilbert is replaceable. So if you need that kind of comic strip, then go read Retail. All right, so with that said, we're gonna go and take a break, and when we do come back, we got another controversy that we are getting into, but let's just say this one is not as black and white as the Scott Adams story, so stay tuned on that. All right, yes, okay, it's all good. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about South Park. Now, what is happening over here is that apparently Warner Brothers Discovery is suing Paramount Global over the streaming rights of South Park, and that apparently Paramount is not necessarily doing their part on their deal with Warner Brothers Discovery. Now, to go and give you context about what has been happening, you probably do recall back in 2019, during the very beginning of the streaming wars, what happened was that Warner Brothers actually won a bidding war in which they paid $500 million in order to get the exclusive streaming rights to South Park, so that they could go and actually promote HBO Max by saying that they actually have South Park. That South Park, that HBO Max is the exclusive streaming home of South Park. So they wanted to go and make that deal. And on top of that, they were also promised that they would go and get 3 new seasons with 10 episodes each. But so far, they did not really get that. What ended up happening instead was that they ended up getting a total of 14 episodes across those 3 seasons, where the first of those seasons, there was literally just 2 episodes. Then the season after that, there were 6 episodes. And then when it comes to the next season, which is the season coming up, they also just released 6 episodes as well. And that's pretty much it. But then to go and complicate things for the matter came 2021, when there was the news that MTV gave the creators of South Park, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, $900 million in order to go and create exclusive movies for Paramount Plus, which is Paramount's streaming service. And that's why we ended up getting feature films such as the post-COVID movies and the streaming war movies. And so far, they got a whole bunch more coming up. Apparently, they got a grand total of 14 that they have to make as part of that deal. But so far, with everything that's been going on and with what Warner Brothers has been receiving for HBO Max, they are definitely not happy. In fact, to go and read you from my source here on Variety, this whole lawsuit, it states here, the suit filed Friday in New York State Supreme Court asserts that Paramount breached the contract by steering South Park specials and other content to its own Paramount Plus platform. The suit alleges that Paramount blatantly intended to prop up Paramount Plus at the expense of Warner Brothers and HBO, and that Paramount engaged in multiple and flagrant duplicitous contortions, big words that are hard to read for me, of the fact and breach of contract. Now, Paramount has also put out their comment in regards to the entire situation, in which they state here, We believe these claims are without merit and look forward to demonstrating so through the legal process. We also know that Paramount continues to adhere to the party contracts by delivering new South Park episodes to HBO Max, despite the fact that Warner Brothers Discovery has failed to refuse to pay license fees that it owes to Paramount for episodes that have already been delivered, to which HBO Max continues to stream. And on top of that, there's also an extra message that's worth mentioning here, that HBO Max argues that the deal requires diverting content that should have fallen under its 2019 contract to Paramount Plus instead. The suit alleges that Paramount engaged in verbal trickery and grammatical sleight of hands, characterizing the new content as movies, films, or events, but not episodes, to avoid its obligation under the 2019 agreement. So yeah, that's pretty much the complex situation that we are going on with here with the South Park lawsuit. And as I said before, this really did feel like something we should have seen it coming, because you got to keep in mind that out of all the properties that Paramount has, one of the biggest ones of them all is undeniably South Park. Like, it is right up there with SpongeBob SquarePants as one of Paramount's most valuable brands, one of their most valuable franchises that they do own. And the idea that they would go and try to sell it to another streaming service is absolutely ridiculous. But then again, I guess you could say that what led to this really was a complex scenario, because when you do think back in 2019, I think, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was kind of before the time when Paramount truly dedicated to go and actually get into the streaming wars. Because keep in mind, Paramount Plus came really late into the party, like way before stuff like HBO Max and Disney Plus and stuff like that. So they were pretty late in the party. And I guess the decision of selling South Park was before they decide, hey, let's go and make our own streaming service to go and compete with all those other streaming services, you know? They would go and try to do that. But then you realize the reality of how this pretty much complicated the entire scenario, how it pretty much became so messed up when you got a major competing company or a major entertainment corporation in which they sell the rights to one of their biggest brands to another major corporation that is specifically towards entertainment. Like they're selling South Park to one of their direct competitors. And then suddenly now they change their mind and they're like, hey, let's go and now compete against them. And yeah, they got to go and use like all their major assets that they got. And technically, one of their major assets that they have is South Park, which ended up really complicating things for the matter. And I mean, like, when you do look at what Trey Parker and Matt Stone has to do right now, of course they cannot really go and commit to making like 10 episodes a season, especially when they were added extra responsibilities to go and do. Like the fact that now they have to go and make 14 streaming movies exclusively to Paramount Plus. And I can imagine with that scenario, of course it would go and anger HBO Max, and it would anger Warner Brothers Discovery, because what they paid $500 million for is not to have South Park on HBO Max, but it's to say that that HBO Max is the exclusive streaming home of South Park. That if you want to watch South Park through streaming, you gotta go and watch it through HBO Max. And the fact that Paramount decided to step in and create their own South Park content on top of, like, I remember when they made a major announcement of all the upcoming stuff that they would have. I remember at one point they really went heavy with promoting South Park, and that they even mentioned that when the contract with HBO Max will expire, then the South Park content, all those episodes, are gonna move onto Paramount Plus. Then that at that point it just makes things so complicated. And in a way, yes, they are kind of screwing over HBO Max by doing so, which ultimately leads to what we got over here, just this complicated copyright battle of HBO Max and Paramount. And I mean, it's hard to really go and pinpoint who really is to blame. I mean, like, is Paramount really the bad guy for screwing over Warner Brothers? like playing them like a fiddle with the entire elements of South Park, or is it like or should they not have brought up the idea of actually selling South Park to another distributor? It just like there's so much about this, like it's just, you know, I'm like, even to this day, like a good part of my day so far was actually trying to comprehend what the fridge is going on, because like this entire scenario, in lack of a better term, is just full on crazy. Because yeah, it's like a lot of it doesn't seem to make sense, because it's like, okay, now you're going to sell the rights to one of your biggest properties to another, to one of your competitors, and then you decide to go and directly get involved in the competition, make your own streaming service, and now you want to go and make your own content of the thing that you sold to the other company, and now the other company is just flat out pissed, and now it's just like it's a whole mess. It really is just this massive mess of what they are trying to do. Like, instead of just making South Park, instead of having South Park be like the exclusive streaming home of one place, now it's kind of like everywhere. Like, yeah, there's some South Park you could see through Paramount Plus, and then there are some that you could see through HBO Max. Like, you gotta have to run around all over the place if you want your fix of South Park. I mean, you could bypass either, and you could just go either through just like buy the DVDs, or I mean, if you're okay with it, then technically you could go and pirate the content. But still, though, it's just absolutely ridiculous to see this scenario unfurl, to see like how it became such, it just became like this. Honestly, like, what would have made sense is just make Paramount Plus the exclusive streaming home of all of South Park. I think, honestly, at this point, to make things less complicated for the matter, like, I think, honestly, HBO Max should just let go of South Park. That Warner Brothers should no longer hold on to South Park, either get their money back or not, but just give it all back to Paramount Plus. Make things less complicated so that Paramount Plus can go and do whatever they want with their property, with one of their biggest shows in their entire history. Just make things easy. Just make it simple like that, because as how things are right now, it really is just a mess, and it's hard to really imagine if there is a scenario that if anyone would really come out as a winner. I don't know if Paramount is going to be the winner in this scenario, or unless like the judge rules in favor for Paramount, then honestly, maybe at that point they could come out as a winner and their entire mission actually works out. But like, but I know for a fact that there's no way that HBO Max or Warner Brothers Discovery is going to come out as a winner here. And yeah, like, I understand why everybody is so upset. I understand why everybody is so pissed off in the matter. I mean, like, honestly, the only ones who are not to blame, like, the only people who I cannot really blame is just South Park and Trey Parker and Matt Stone. They're just doing their jobs. They're just doing what they can in order to produce their highly successful show. It's just the executives that have really messed up, and they've just complicated the matter. It's just like, maybe you people could probably make more sense on this than me, but just looking at this, yeah, like this entire lawsuit, I don't know. All I know, like, what I do know is that it's not going to be pretty, and I highly doubt that anyone is going to come out a winner in this. So yeah, I just thought that it would be worth mentioning here because of how nuts this entire scenario really unfurls. But I will keep my eye out on this lawsuit and see how things are gonna go, because considering that it does involve one of the biggest animated series of all time, it will be interesting to see like what the future will hold for the streaming rights of South Park. I think South Park itself is definitely going to be fine no matter what. It's just how things are going to be in terms of their future in streaming services. That's going to be a completely different story. Are they going to stay long on HBO Max? Are they, is the content on Paramount Plus going to stay there? Who the fridge knows? So with that said, I would like to go into the chat wall, and now I want to ask you all, how do you feel about this lawsuit? Do any of you understand this more than I do? Can you make more sense out of this? Let me know what you think. I want to know your thoughts on it. Let's see. Well, Warner Brothers Discovery needs to find a way to fund their DC Studios and Lord of the Rings projects, so they are going to get their big bucks. Even if the outcome of the lawsuit will favor between Paramount and Warner Brothers Discovery, the biggest winners are the South Park writers, now that they have so much material and possibilities to make episodes out of this. But will it happen? I don't know, but it could be entertaining to see the girls fighting. Oh, that is true. You know, the funny thing is that considering that they've already made streaming war movies, like, honestly, I don't like, maybe this could turn into an episode, but how hilarious would this be that this entire lawsuit would actually be turned into one of the 14 movies that Paramount has ordered from Trey Parker and Matt Stone? That would actually be glorious. Let South Park itself describe what the fridge is happening with this entire scenario. That is gold. That is a golden opportunity right there. Let's see. This whole scenario is all over the place. It just doesn't make any sense. It just looks weird that Paramount would sell South Park to HBO Max and then make their own content. Although, if I had to guess, this was technically before CBS All Access was rebranded into Paramount Plus, and the service is doing good for themselves. So my guess is that they want to now have full access to South Park. So overall, it's a mess. Yeah, I'm sure like the decisions that they have made back then, completely logical. Like, they were pulling off some smart moves back then. But it's just, the biggest problem though is that these are smart moves that do not connect together, and that in the long run, the fact that they find each other now, it just becomes a mess where the smart moves now become a dumb move. Let's see what else we got. In terms of the South Park streaming rights situation, this looks very complicated. I don't know if either Warner Brothers Discovery or Paramount will win in court, but either way, at least Trey and Matt will get all their money they need as they're doing just their jobs. If I were them, just give it to Paramount and give that series that was made by Comedy Central, and Paramount owns the franchise, and that's it. Yeah, I know. Like, I don't think Trey Parker and Matt Stone are really that worried in this entire situation because, like, hey, they've literally got paid almost $1 billion to make South Park content. I think they're gonna be fine in all this. It's not like their money is at stake after all. All right, let's see here. In the tune of Uncle Effa, oh god. Shut your effing face, David Zaslav. You're on WB and then David Zaslav. You're an effing lousy CEO. Something that most of us all know. Shit. Oh boy. And wow, an entire recite. Like, I'm not gonna go and go throw out the F word just yet. Like, I already did my one swear word of the day by saying bitch. So I mean, I don't think I can really continue others. Okay. Let's see. I wonder if that is a thing. Does AniMat have a limit to how many swear words that he could say in a day, or at least publicly on the internet? Okay. Anyways, here's the thing though. Trey Parker and Matt Stone are just too busy doing what they made, and they are filthy rich about it at the same time. It's pretty much WBD's problem, while Paramount has their rights to do whatever they want. Hell, one of the recent specials did tackle this, and it was pretty funny. Exactly. You know, and that's why, like, it's not a scenario in regards to the creation. You know, this is not a creative problem. It's actually more of an issue in relation to the executives. It's more the business aspect that really became ridiculous. In fact, this is more of a legal story than it is about a creative story. It just so happens to be involved with one of the most well-known and most popular animated shows in history. Let's see, what other comments do we have here? There are some that I don't think I've read from yet. Here we go. There's crazy, and then there's crazy. This story just feels like it's all over the place. So I still haven't really I still haven't really what I should feel. Oh, still don't know what I should feel about this. But right now, while I can see the points on both sides, Paramount should be given South Park back. So not just to make watching the show less complicated, but also since they used to own it through Comedy Central. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Just make it the house. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's more of a Paramount thing, so make it a Paramount thing. Don't go and travel all around, because this entire scenario would be like if the Looney Tunes cartoons would find themselves on Disney Plus. Makes no freaking sense. And I mean, like, all it will end up doing is just make like complicated like it'll just make complicated legal troubles. You know, like it's a scenario that would ultimately end up in court. Let's see, what else do we have here? Paramount technically go to streaming wars pretty early with CBS All Access, but then they updated to become what is now Paramount Plus, and Warner Brothers had the original whole media rights to South Park ever since the movie, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, and CBS Viacom owned everything else that had to do with South Park, and now we're streaming. That is complicating things more so. Warner Brothers is taking more action to make their home media rights worth the money. I think you mean home media than home media rights. Does anybody have a home media right out there? All right, I think I'm going to read one more story before we get into the grand finale. When I first heard of a South Park lawsuit, I thought it would be about the worldwide privacy tour. I wasn't expecting it to be about licensing. And to be frank, I just hope people will see that both of these corporations are doing this out of greed. I also hope people would embrace socialism, but these are both pipe dreams. Anyway, I can't wait to see what Trey and Matt cook up as a result. Exactly, man. This is just a big, complicated battle of capitalism. It's not about Trey Parker and Matt Stone. It's not about the show itself. It's about the streaming. It's about the legal rights of who can stream this show. And right now, it's just becoming way too complicated. And honestly, I think the show is going to be fine. But the executives at Warner Brothers Discovery and Paramount, along with their lawyers, I don't think so. And with that said, we're going to go and take one more break. And then we will get into the grand finale, as we will go and look into the biggest night of animation. Yes, I have saved the biggest animation story for last, so stay tuned on that. Sorry. And now, folks, this is it. The moment that you have all been waiting for, with the biggest story of the episode, with the grand finale. And with this one, we are going to look into the biggest event that happened during the weekend. Now, there have been several award shows that did happen, including the Producer Guild Awards and the SAG-AFTRA Awards. But what I'm going to be looking to specifically is the biggest night for animation, and definitely one that was highly celebrated, because after a few years of COVID, they now finally came back together and celebrated live on stage with the Annie Awards. Yes, specifically the 50th annual Annie Awards. Yes, it was specifically on Saturday, February 25th, in which they have revealed all the big winners. And I will say that it is both surprising and not surprising at the same time. Because, of course, what we all expected, the big winner turned out to be none other than Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, in which, of course, it won for Best Animated Feature. And not only that, though, but Pinocchio managed to win a grand total of 5 Annie Awards, in which, on top of the Best Animated Feature category that it won, it also managed to win for Outstanding Achievement for Character Animation, which went to Tucker Berry. It also won for Best Directing, which went to Guillermo del Toro and Mark Gustafson. It also won for Outstanding Achievement in Music, in which that went to Alexander Desplat, Robin Katz, Guillermo del Toro, and Patrick Hale. And it also won for Best Production Design, which was given to Kurt Endery and Kurt Enderl and Guy Davis. But Pinocchio wasn't the only big winner here, because there were actually a few others that walked away with several Annies, more than one. And another big winner of this year was actually Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, in which not only did it win for Best Independent Animated Feature, but it was also the winner for Best Writing, and it won for Best Voice Acting for Jenny Slate and her performance as Marcel. And of course, who could forget the fan favorite movie Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, in which one of the biggest surprises was the fact that it walked away with not one, but 2 Annie Awards, in which it won for Outstanding Achievement in Storyboarding, given to Anthony Holden, specifically for the scene at the end of the film of Puss in Boots versus the Wolf, or aka Death. And then there was also Best Editing, in which that managed to win and even beat out Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. And there is one more movie that is worth mentioning, and that is The Bad Guys, in which that film actually managed to walk away for Best Character Design. It actually did win a Best Character Design Annie. But then also beforehand, I just want to go and quickly mention that there is another movie that managed to walk away with a couple of Annie Awards, and that is Avatar: The Way of Water, in which not only did it win for Best Character Animation in a live action production, but it also won for Best Animated Effects, and I do have a few things to say about that one. Now, when it comes to TV and broadcast productions, we also got a few other winners as well. In fact, the big winners when it comes to shows and series and stuff like that, the 2 big winners were none other than The Boy, the Fox, the Mole, and the Horse, and Love, Death, and Robots, in which it managed to win 4 Annies each. The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse actually managed to win Best Animated Special Production, and it also won for Best Character Animation. It then also won for Best Directing, and it won for Best Editing. And then you got Love, Death, and Robots, to which that one managed to win, first off, Best Animated Effects for the episode Bad Traveling. Then it won for Best Character Design for the episode Jibaro. Then after that, it won for it won for Best Storyboarding for The Very Pulse of the Machine. And then it won for Best Writing for Bad Traveling. Other winners this year include Maurice LaMarche for his voiceover performance as Mr. Big in Zootopia Plus. You also got Oni, Thunder God's Tale, in which it won 2 Annie Awards. It won for Best Production Design, as well for Best Animated Limited Series. And then you also have The Cuphead Show, in which it won for Best Music for the episode Carnival. Then following afterwards, you also have, speaking of Cuphead, the Cuphead DLC, Cuphead: The Delicious Last Course, in which it won for Best Character Animation in a Video Game. Then afterwards, you also got The Soloist winning Best Student Film, Bob's Burgers, in which it won for Best Mature Audience Animated Television Broadcast Production for Some Like It Bot Part 1, 8th Grade Runner. You got Abominable and the Invisible City for the episode Everest Returns for Best TV Production for Children. Then after that, for the preschool category, it went to The Tiny Chef Show Pancakes. Then the Best Sponsored Production went to Save Ralph. And finally, Best Animated Short went to Ice Merchants. Now, one thing that I do want to say right now that is possibly the biggest surprise and the most pleasant surprise is the fact that this year, it was not a runaway. You know, it was not a big sweep. You know, like I've mentioned this before, but one thing that that was upsetting me in regards to the Annie Awards and that it made me question its legitimacy was the fact that each year from 2017 or technically 2018 onward, we have been seeing movies that's just been sweeping again and again and again. that the Annies were clearly giving the Annie Award to just one movie. Well, like if it's in that category, they would just immediately give it to them. Like they did so with Coco, then they did it with Spider-Verse, then they did it with Klaus, then they did it with Wolfwalkers and Soul, and then they did it last year with The Mitchells versus the Machines. But this year, though, it's a little bit different. Pinocchio, while technically it went out with the most, it didn't necessarily win all of them. It managed to walk away with just 5, which is still a very great achievement, which is still a great significant amount. And then we've seen other animated films getting their opportunity to get a good win for themselves. Like we saw Marcel the Shell with Shoes On getting some good wins. Then we also saw Puss in Boots: The Last Wish getting a couple of wins. And then you got The Bad Guys, which managed to walk off with a win of their own. You know, it's great to see that it's great to see that now we're seeing a diversity in terms of the amount of winners, that it's not just one that's walking away with everything. You know, like there are a few, and like with Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, there are some categories that it did not actually win, that it went towards another movie. Like, for example, like Best Animated Effects went to Avatar: The Way of Water. Or another example, one that I've already mentioned, Best Editing. It went to Puss in Boots: The Last Wish instead of Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Or even Best Voice Acting, which that was a massive shock. Instead of either giving it to David Bradley as Geppetto or giving it to Gregory Mann as Pinocchio, they gave it to Jenny Slate for Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. Like, now we are seeing some legit competition, and we are seeing how there are some movies that can do better than others. I mean, maybe some people could go and debate like that maybe it's not fully the case with the TV shows, because it did ultimately go to just 2 animated programs. Like, most of it went to The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, and Love, Death, and Robots, while you may have gotten a few other winners like The Cuphead Show or Zootopia Plus. And honestly, like, I was a bit disappointed because I was honestly really rooting for Baymax to go and win a few, because it was actually in competition for some. But honestly, yeah, like for the movie categories, like, honestly, I'm really happy about it. And honestly, like, to be fair, the crazy thing is that I was expecting that maybe we would see a legitimate sweep, that we would actually see so many of these films, like we would see Pinocchio walk away with so many of these awards. Because I remember last week, I actually was predicting alongside Paleo Steno. I was on his live stream, and we were talking about who would be the big winners at the Annie Awards. And a lot of what we predicted, surprisingly enough, the grand majority actually did go to Pinocchio, to Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. But no, it turns out a lot of it, well, we may have been wrong with those. And honestly, I'm very happy with the results. Honestly, this is the happiest that I've been with the results that we have gotten since the 2016 ones, with Zootopia ended up becoming the big winner. I feel like this is a really fair round for the Annie Awards, that now the Annies are truly representing what animation can do, not just fanboying over one movie specifically, but now looking into the other awards and giving them, you know, like actually, like feeling like a fair competition, like determining what deserves the award and who should get what. Now, there is one, however, that I would argue, one that I feel like it's a little bit off, and out of all of them, it has to be for Best Animated Effects. Now, this one, I have to raise a question, because with Avatar, obviously they recognize it as a live action production, because it did manage to win Best Character Animation in a live action production. But what, like, okay, like, technically I get it. It is Avatar. The visuals there are absolutely phenomenal. But why is that in a category where technically it's meant to be reserved for animated films exclusively? Like, why is it up against films like Minions: The Rise of Gru and Sea Beast and Lightyear and Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio? That I feel like it's a little bit unfair. And I mean, but I feel like it should qualify in what should count, what should count in these categories. And I mean, yeah, I get it. Like all the effects that are done are CG generated. There's no like there aren't much like legitimate practical effects going on in Avatar: The Way of Water. But still though, I don't know, I feel like that's a little bit cheating in a sense. I feel like that is a little bit unfair to go and have it compete against other movies that are technically not part of its categories. Now, this might be a little bit of a hot take, but honestly, in that category, I was actually rooting for Lightyear. I mean, say what you will about that feature, but the animation done in that movie is just drop dead gorgeous. And the animated effects that they've done there is highly admirable. I think that one should have gotten the win more than the others. But yeah, honestly, that's the only one that I feel like is the most questionable. But other than that, though, I'm really happy with the results with what they have gotten. And by the way, I also want to mention that, yes, I actually did watch the Annie Awards. I actually streamed it, funny enough, right at the last minute. It was kind of a last minute choice that I made because I was out with friends. We went to go and see Cocaine Bear. And then like we went in an 8 o'clock screening, and then I got out of the movie theater at around like 9:40 or something like that, and then managed to drive all the way back home, and then decided, you know what, why not? I'm home, I'm ready. It didn't start yet, might as well go and live stream it right now, which honestly went so much longer than I thought, because I recall the previous years, especially during the COVID times, they were relatively short. They were quick, they were simple, mainly because everyone was at home and everyone was kind of like live streaming through their cameras. But in here, like it went on for a while. It went for like nearly 3 hours. Like it went like an award show length. But still though, with the Annie Awards, I will say like it was pretty enjoyable. I actually did have a good time watching it. There are some things that really were questionable because like they were showing a lot of really good clip shows. Like they had a tribute of Disney animation, like celebrating 100 years of Disney animation. That was very nice. They were showing clip shows for the Lifetime Achievement Awards, like for Craig McCracken, and also just go down to the names. They also gave one for the late Evelyn Lambert. But then when they got, okay, then there was the Pete Docter one, which has to be one of the biggest highlights because of everything that happened. Because number one, they actually got a surprise guest, Bob Iger, coming in to talk about Pete Docter, which was totally unexpected. And then when you got into the clip show to show the achievements of what Bob Iger did, of what Pete Docter did, apparently for some reason they couldn't get the rights. Like the Annie Awards were not able to go and stream that little clip show of what they have done with all the Pixar movies. Like, yeah, they showed it there. Yeah, they showed it at the show itself, but they said that apparently for copyright reasons, they weren't able to go and present it. Now, I was streaming it through YouTube and I was thinking, okay, maybe it's a YouTube thing, but technically there were other places that they were streaming as well. And it just left me absolutely confused as to why. Well, not just me, because I remember the day afterwards, me and Pelio, we were talking about this. We were like, what the fridge happened? Like, why did this even occur in the first place? Why was there this sudden copyright warning that the people streaming it weren't able to actually see that little clip show of all the different Pixar movies, like with Monsters Inc. and with Up and with Inside Out and with Soul? Like, why can't we actually see that? Especially when we already got a little clip show of the Disney animated products. You know, it's just, or with the Disney animated movies, but still though, it was just bizarre to see that occur. I don't know, maybe well, it's not just me for sure, because me and Paleo were talking about it, but it was such an unusual event. But then we finally got to Pete Docter, and I gotta say, Pete Docter undeniably has one of the best speeches, or one of the best acceptance speeches, right up there with Mindy Johnson, who got the June Foray Award because throughout her life, she works as a teacher and an animation historian. And her job was basically to go and highlight the women working at animation. In fact, she recently published a book all about the women who worked at Disney Animation, especially those back in the very beginning in the ink and paint department. She also had a great speech. So Pete Docter and Mindy were definitely true highlights right there. And also, another thing that was very surprising that is worth mentioning was actually Guillermo del Toro, because the thing with Guillermo was that you got to keep in mind with the 50th Annie Awards, it was happening at the same time as the Producers Guild Awards, which Guillermo del Toro was there. He accepted Best Animated Feature with Pinocchio, but then, like, around after halfway, Guillermo managed to finally arrive along with Gregory Mann, which, oh my god, the kid hit puberty for sure. He does not have the same voice as he did in Pinocchio, I can tell you that. But finally, we do see Guillermo del Toro finally coming in. And of course, he also had a great speech as well, and talking about the legacy of animation and his relationship with animation as well. And by the way, he even went and stated that the Annies is the only award show where he didn't have to go and say that animation is cinema, that animation is not a kid's genre. And honestly, a very powerful moment and a great highlight right there. And he did manage to come in on time to get his Annie for Best Directing and for Best Animated Feature. So honestly, overall, it is, you know, I think honestly, they did, like, the Annies did legitimately come back in full force, and it's great to see it back. Honestly, I think, honestly, like, I'm not gonna lie, this has to be the best Annie Awards in years. I am so happy. Oh, and also there is one more thing I forgot to go and quickly mention, is that there was one thing that I have learned, and it was through a special award that they have given. Or there was at one point, I don't know if they have listed here, but there was actually a special award that they went and actually gave to the man who created the Annie Award. They actually gave this special award to the man. I forgot his name, unfortunately. Maybe you in the chat wall, you could go and remind me, but the guy, like, the man who literally created the Grammy trophy, he's also the guy who created the Annie Award, and they decided to go and give a special award, you know, to give like special recognition to that guy, in which his son and his grandson were on stage to go and accept. It was a great moment. Plus, you actually get to see how the Annie Award like was created. Like, you see the man in action literally creating the Annie Award. No, not June Foray. I'm literally talking about the trophy itself. So that was a cool moment. But yes, overall, I just have to say that this has definitely been the best Annies in years. Not just the show itself, the way that it finally returned to the stage with with all the who's who in animation attending all this, but even the way that they have distributed all the winners. Honestly, it feels great. It feels like it truly represents animation itself. It truly represents the work of not just one movie, but of all different feature films. And honestly, it's just wonderful to see. Like, now, like, I guess you could say that it kind of regained my trust that that the Annies truly represent the best of the best in animation. So I just want to go and quickly comment on that. All right, so with that said, I would like to go and go into the chat wall, and I want to ask you all, how do you feel about this year's Annie Awards? Are there some snubs that you feel like have been gotten? Are there some surprises? How do you feel about all the winners overall? Let me know what you think. Let's see. I gotta say, I'm really happy with a lot of the winners. While it was predictable that Pinocchio would win Best Animated Feature, it's nice to see this year that there was more variety, like with Puss in Boots and The Bad Guys. Some other winners that stood out to me were Avatar: The Way of Water winning for Best Character Animation and Effects, And one that stood out like a sore thumb to me was Abominable, of all things, winning for Best TV and Media for Children over The Owl House. Oh yeah, I think for animation fans, that's probably the biggest snub, because for many people, this is probably the first time that they have heard that the Abominable movie has an animated series. But not only that, it is now an Annie Award-winning animated series that managed to beat out a very significant episode of The Owl House. So yeah, maybe that's one thing people are pretty upset about, but other than that, I think it's like the rest is pretty cool. All right, let's see here. I'll be honest here. I'm just happy to see my favorite filmmakers getting along very well. As previously mentioned, most of them I've met in 2022, like Guillermo del Toro, Domi Shi, and Jorge Gutierrez, just hanging there. And yes, they're all fantastic as artists and human beings. Please do support them more instead of going against them. They deserve the love and support. Congrats to all the winners, and hopefully I'll join in next year if I save up for next year. Oh my god, yeah, that is true. That is actually another highlight, actually. It was because there was at one point Jorge Gutierrez and Henry Selick, they were coming in to go and announce some of the categories. And they actually came in with customized luchador masks. Like, you see Jorge Gutierrez with this completely customized mask that obviously he created himself because his art style is very recognizable. And Henry Selick as well. It was actually a pretty cool and funny moment. So that is worth mentioning too. Let's see what else we got. You get an Annie, and you get an Annie, and you get an Annie. But seriously, never have I been this satisfied with this year's winners. I do agree that it is odd that Avatar is included in the nominations. Some winners I rooted for were Cuphead, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, and Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. With Guillermo's speech, is no surprise that it is a highlight. I didn't know he had to travel to 2 award shows. Overall, congratulations to all the winners and the nominees. All right, who else would we have? Not gonna lie, I really enjoyed the 50th Annie Awards, and I'm glad that they're not biased on one movie that will win with every award. Big congrats to the bad guys, Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, Pinocchio, and many others for winning those trophies. One of the biggest highlights for me is when Del Toro making it to the show after the PGAs. Oh, excuse me. Aladdin and Jasmine reuniting, and Weird Al of all places. It's definitely a great night for animation. Oh yeah, there was that little Aladdin reunion where the voices of Aladdin and Jasmine actually came in to announce some of the categories. I think they were among the first ones, actually. All right, I think I'm going to read one more comment before we're going to go and cap this off. So, who would I go with? I'll go with here. Pinocchio should have won all of the Annie Awards. It is that good. All joking aside, I highly congratulate Del Toro and his crew for bringing out a grand masterpiece, which it is in competition with Puss in Boots as my most favorite animated film of 2022. Besides Avatar 2, the only award I was confused and ticked off was Abominable and The Invisible City winning Best TV instead of The Owl House. I never heard of Invisible City. Oh well, there's always next year. Hope the finale of The Owl House gets nominated. And with that said, that should do it for today's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. Man, what a wild episode it has been. I know we had a bit of technical difficulties in the middle, but at least we managed to pull through. And tune in next week. We will definitely have more crazy adventures and more crazy stories to cover. In fact, we do have one more Mario movie that's going to be coming out next week, and I know many of you are excited for that. So with all that said and done, I just want to go and say, don't forget to go and subscribe to my Twitch channel, AniMat Live, and to the AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast YouTube channel. And don't forget to go and follow me on whatever podcast service you're listening to, whether it be on Google, Amazon, iTunes, Spotify, or more. And with all that said and done, I would like to say thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, see you later, dudes.